If you've ever walked into a Home Depot and grabbed an orange cordless drill off the shelf, you bought a Ridgid. And if you've ever watched a plumber wrestle a rusted fitting with a massive red pipe wrench, that was also a Ridgid. Same logo, same name, completely different companies. One is manufactured in Ohio by a 100-year-old American conglomerate. The other is built in China by a Hong Kong electronics giant. And the story of how one brand became two is one of the strangest corporate splits in the entire tool industry. This is the Ridgid story. Our story begins with a fundamental problem that plagued every plumber in America for decades. The Stillson wrench. Patented in 1869, the Stillson was the undisputed king of pipe wrenches, but it had serious flaws. The exposed leaf springs snapped under heavy torque. The housing warped. The grip slipped at the worst possible moment. Plumbers needed something better, and a mechanical inventor in North Ridgeville, Ohio, was determined to build it. His name was William O. Thewes. Throughout the early 1920s, Thewes obsessed over pipe wrench geometry. He developed an offset jaw design with a reinforced housing that could absorb massive amounts of torque without catastrophic failure. In April of 1922, a notice appeared in a trade journal called Forging and Heat Treating. It announced the incorporation of the Ridge Tool Machinery Company in Elyria, Ohio. Capital stock was $50,000. The founding team included Thewes himself, along with Carl H. Ingwer Sr., who became the company's first president. By 1923, they dropped the word machinery, became the Ridge Tool Company, and launched the Ridgid brand. The name came directly from North Ridgeville. Those early wrenches were stamped with the words Pat, Pendige, as Thewes waited for his patents to clear. And clear they did. Between 1925 and 1937, Thewes secured a series of patents that would define pipe wrenches for the next century. The most important came in 1936. Patent number 2005-1755 introduced a double compression coil spring formed from a single piece of wire. This spring replaced the fragile leaf springs of the Stillson era. It was elegant, it was indestructible, and it worked. Under Carl Ingwer's leadership, the Ridge Tool Company adopted a simple philosophy: reinvest profits into product development. By 1930, the catalog had expanded to include end wrenches, pipe cutters, and heavy-duty post-mounted vices. They marketed everything as pre-tested work-saver tools. The message was clear: these were not just tools, they were engineered solutions. In 1943, exactly 20 years after founding, the company moved to a sprawling new headquarters in Elyria, Ohio. That facility still serves as Ridgid's world headquarters today. When World War II ended in 1945, Europe was rubble. Cities needed rebuilding. Infrastructure needed replacing. And all of that required pipe. In 1946, Ridgid began aggressively exporting tools overseas. European tradespeople got their first taste of American industrial iron, and they liked it. But Ridgid was not content to just sell wrenches. They wanted to mechanize the entire plumbing trade. Before the late 1940s, threading iron pipe was brutal manual labor. You needed massive leverage, sharp dies, and incredible physical endurance. Ridgid saw an opportunity to eliminate that bottleneck entirely. In 1948, they introduced the Model 400 power drive. This was not an incremental improvement. This was a revolution. Instead of a worker manually rotating a die head around stationary pipe, the electric power drive rotated the pipe itself. The operator simply applied hand tools to cut, ream, and thread the spinning material. The Model 400 was an instant hit. In 1950, Ridgid followed up with the Model 500 threading machine, which integrated cutting, reaming, and threading into a single floor-standing unit. Then came 1957 and the Model 535. This machine featured something called the Ridgid Speed Chuck. It achieved a rock-solid, slip-free grip on heavy pipe with a simple hand movement. No chuck keys. No complex tightening procedures. Just grip and go. The Model 535 was so perfectly over-engineered that it remained the industry standard for over 40 years. And for jobs that needed to happen on-site rather than in a shop, Ridgid released the Model 300 in 1959, lightweight, portable, mountable on a folding stand or the back of a work truck. Factory-level threading capabilities went wherever the job was. By 1962, Ridgid recognized that shipping heavy iron machinery across the Atlantic was expensive, so they opened their first overseas manufacturing facility in Belgium. The company had transformed from an Ohio toolmaker into a true multinational operation. But growth requires capital, and by the mid-1960s, The Ridge Tool Company had reached the ceiling of what a family-owned business could achieve. The automation required for modern foundries and global expansion demanded institutional backing. In 1966, the Ridge Tool Company was acquired by Emerson Electric, a rapidly expanding conglomerate based in St. Louis, Missouri. This was a watershed moment. Ridgid became the cornerstone of Emerson's newly forming professional tools segment, and with Emerson's capital behind them, Ridgid went on an acquisition spree. In 1967, they bought the Coleman Company of Erie, Pennsylvania. Coleman made drain cleaning equipment. Overnight, Ridgid became a major player in the drain cleaning business. In 1969, they achieved a metallurgical breakthrough with their first aluminum handle pipe wrench, nearly 50% lighter than ductile iron, same heavy-duty lifetime guarantee. The most critical acquisition came in 1974. Ridgid bought the Uric Foundry, also in Erie. This gave them total control over their raw material supply chain. The jaw and housing castings that defined Ridgid quality now came from their own foundry, made to their own exacting standards. While all this industrial expansion was happening, Ridgid was also building something else, a cultural phenomenon. In 1949, the company launched an annual pin-up calendar. Early editions featured artwork by George Petty, the legendary illustrator from Esquire magazine. Over the decades, the format shifted to photography. Raquel Welch appeared in 1964. Brooke Burke, Cynthia Wood, and Sybil Shepherd followed in later years. The marketing psychology was simple. Put an attractive image on the wall, and the Ridgid name stays visible for 12 straight months. When a tradesman needed a tool, Ridgid was the first name that came to mind. It worked brilliantly for decades. But as corporate sensibilities shifted and the industry demographics changed, the calendar became controversial. Emerson discontinued the traditional pin-up format after 2016. The 2017 calendar featured original artwork, tool imagery, and quotes from real tradespeople. End of an era. And speaking of eras ending, here is where the Ridgid story gets genuinely weird. By the early 2000s, the power tool industry was going cordless. Battery chemistry was advancing rapidly. DeWalt, Makita, and Bosch were all competing for dominance. Emerson Electric looked at this landscape and made a calculated decision. They were experts in heavy industrial valves, process control equipment, and specialized plumbing tools. They were not experts in lithium-ion battery manufacturing or high-volume consumer electronics. So in 2003, Emerson signed a licensing agreement with Tektronic Industries. TTI is a Hong Kong-based manufacturing giant founded in 1985. They started as an original equipment manufacturer, building tools for other brands. In 1987, they produced Craftsman cordless tools for Sears. In 2000, they bought the Ryobi North American power tool business, and in 2005, they acquired Milwaukee Electric Tool from Atlas Copco. Today, TTI is a $15 billion company employing over 48,000 people. They own the entire supply chain: injection molding, copper winding, battery cell packaging, final assembly. Everything happens in-house at mega factories across China, Vietnam, and Mexico. Under the 2003 agreement, TTI gained exclusive rights to design, engineer, manufacture, and market cordless power tools under the Ridgid brand name. These tools are sold primarily through Home Depot. The actual manufacturing happens through a TTI subsidiary called One World Technologies, based in Anderson, South Carolina. When you buy an orange Ridgid drill, it was built in Dongguan, China. The packaging states the trademark is used pursuant to a license granted by Ridgid, Inc. This is why there are two Ridgids. Red Ridgid tools are the traditional plumbing, pipe fitting, and drain cleaning equipment. They are manufactured by Emerson, largely in Ohio. Orange Ridgid tools are cordless power tools. They are manufactured by TTI in Asia. Same logo, different continents, different corporate parents. And this brings us to the question that haunts every tool forum on the internet. Are Ridgid power tools just repainted Milwaukee tools? TTI makes both brands. The tools look similar. The batteries have comparable form factors. The rumor is everywhere, and the answer is no. Milwaukee operates as a largely independent subsidiary headquartered in Brookfield, Wisconsin. They have their own dedicated research and development division. Their executives aggressively differentiate Milwaukee from the rest of the TTI portfolio. Independent teardowns consistently prove that the internal components are distinctly different. Different stators, different rotors, different anvil designs, different switch assemblies. Milwaukee components are frequently overbuilt to handle higher thermal loads. Ridgid components are engineered to hit specific cost-to-performance ratios. What consumers are actually observing is trickle-down technology. Because TTI owns the entire supply chain, advanced brushless motor designs or battery configurations developed for premium Milwaukee tools eventually get cost-reduced and integrated into newer Ridgid and Ryobi tools a few years later. But an orange Ridgid impact driver is not a repainted Milwaukee. It is engineered to a different tolerance, using different materials, to hit a different price point. TTI runs a deliberate brand hierarchy inside Home Depot. Ryobi is the entry level. High volume, lower prices, massive ecosystem for homeowners and DIYers. Ridgid sits in the middle, heavier duty components, more robust ergonomics, competitive pricing for prosumers and tradesmen. Milwaukee occupies the top tier. Premium pricing, cutting-edge brushless technology, and extreme durability for heavy commercial and industrial use. 3 brands, 3 tiers. One company capturing every segment of the market. To sweeten the deal for contractors, TTI introduced the Lifetime Service Agreement in 2003. This was not a standard warranty. The LSA promised that any registered power tool or battery that failed under regular use would be repaired or replaced for free. For life, including batteries. Lithium-ion batteries are expensive consumables. Every other manufacturer treats them as wear items. Ridgid was promising to replace them forever. There was a catch. You had to register the product within 90 days of purchase. You needed original receipts and UPC codes. And consumers have widely reported that the registration portal is a nightmare. Registrations get stuck in pending status. They require multiple interventions. They get rejected for minor clerical errors. Critics argue this friction is intentional, a calculated strategy to minimize the massive financial liability of providing free batteries a decade after purchase. The LSA is administered by One World Technologies, not Emerson. So Emerson stays legally insulated from consumer complaints while their trademark sits on every tool and every piece of promotional material. The most significant crisis hit in 2025. TTI was forced to recall approximately 64,000 Ridgid 18-volt brushless framing nailers. These were the 21-degree and 30-degree models, sold through Home Depot between July 2021 and May 2025. The problem was catastrophic. A properly functioning framing nailer requires dual-action safety. The nose piece must be pressed against a work surface and the trigger pulled simultaneously. The recalled Ridgid nailers suffered a mechanical failure that bypassed this safety entirely. They could fire a 3-inch framing nail simply by pulling the trigger in the air. The Consumer Product Safety Commission intervened. A class action lawsuit followed. Plaintiffs alleged TTI sold dangerous products without adequate safeguards. They criticized the remedy because TTI did not offer full refunds. Instead, users had to mail their nailers back for free repairs, leaving contractors without essential tools for weeks. The timing was brutal. The Ridgid recall coincided with massive recalls affecting other TTI brands. Nearly 800,000 Ryobi pressure washers were recalled for exploding capacitors. Ryobi mowers and hedge trimmers were recalled for fire and laceration hazards. It was not a good year for TTI quality control. Despite the controversies, Ridgid continues to innovate on both sides of the corporate divide. Emerson keeps pushing diagnostic electronics and press technology. The Sea-Snake micro-reel from 2007 democratized video pipe inspection for residential plumbers. By 2017, the system included Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, streaming high-definition inspections directly to smartphones. The MegaPress system from 2012 was the world's first iron pipe pressing system, joining heavy pipe in seconds, with hydraulic force instead of messy threading. And even the century-old threading machines have gone cordless. In 2022, Ridgid introduced the 760 FXP power drive, battery-powered threading with digital end-of-thread indicator technology, 100 years of progress in a single tool. So what is the verdict on Ridgid? It depends on which Ridgid you are talking about. The red Ridgid tools from Emerson are generational assets, ductile iron forged in controlled foundries, trusted by Saudi Aramco on oil rigs, trusted by MLB maintenance crews. When Marvel needed a prop to signify heavy industrial work in Iron Man 2, they handed Tony Stark a Ridgid pipe wrench. Robert Downey Jr. signed it after filming. It now sits in a glass case at Ridgid headquarters in Elyria. The orange Ridgid tools from TTI are a different proposition. They are solid mid-tier power tools backed by an aggressive warranty program that may or may not actually work when you need it. They are not Milwaukee tools in disguise. They are purpose-built to hit a specific price point for a specific customer. If you understand that, they represent genuine value. One brand, two companies, two continents, two completely different philosophies sharing a single name. That is the Ridgid story, and honestly, it's one of the strangest corporate arrangements in the entire tool industry.